Off air, on air. Here we go. Hello. Welcome to the first Shoot the Defense of 2018-19 season. I'm your host, Stel, and this is our sixth season running. And joining me tonight, I have 4 guests. I can actually count. Excellent. On my left, as you can see, this fella, I don't know if you recognize him. It's been such a while since he's been on. This is John.
Yeah, it has been a long time.
Yeah, it's been too long. For those of you who don't know, John started Shoot This Defense with me back in 2012. We were on the sat on a couch. We were talking about Euro 2012, wasn't it?
We were talking about all sorts of things that night. It got a bit heated, I think, at one point.
Yeah, and I think it came to.
There was some music involved, maybe a couple of cigarette breaks as well.
Yes. And I think it came down to the point where it was like, well, let's record what we're saying, so we can quote each other. Next thing you know, I'm here doing a show with you guys.
There you go.
So, yeah, great to have you back, my friend.
Thank you very much. Good to be back.
Now, great to have 3 more guests on. First of all, let me pick Chris Windsor from the 5-year plan Crystal Palace fans. How you doing, buddy? You all right?
Very well, yourself?
Yeah, great to have you on, mate. How's your summer?
It's been good. Haven't really had to worry about Palace too much because I haven't seen them play too much. And quietly optimistic for the season, which is worrying, which probably means we're going to be relegated now.
Oh, don't say that. Come on now. Oh, you got to be a bit more optimistic, man.
Well, it's been one of those summers where, some business was done early. The World Cup detracted most fans from worrying, and then we kind of came back, had a lull, and actually brought in players that even the kind of most pessimistic Palace fans struggled to kind of dismiss. So, yeah, it's been worryingly optimistic for the past couple of days.
It could be worse. You could be starting the season with De Boer as manager.
Very true. Playing a system which none of the players can play. It's worrying that we've actually got a settled team with a settled formation and a settled manager. It's something I'm not used to.
There you go. Start as you mean to go on, mate.
Yeah.
Go on. Right, my next guest is none other than Eman from the One Up Front podcast. Geezer, how you doing?
I'm all right, Stel. How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, all good.
Hopefully your listeners won't be offended by me chewing my jollof rice this evening. So
listen, if they don't like jollof rice, then they can unsubscribe now. I don't want to know. Okay?
I'm offended that we're not there with you.
Yeah.
Maybe see next time we should do takeaway.
We should do, yeah.
Takeaway and then some alcohol after as well.
Gave you and your boozing antics, all of that. Speaking of boozing, there's a certain gentleman that was just knocking back a can of pear cider from Tesco. It's Mr. Matther Crist. Welcome back, mate. How you doing?
Well, I'm feeling a lot better than I did last time I spoke to you on Sunday night, but I think a lot of it's down to this pear cider, 5% pear cider that I'm drinking from Tesco. It's made me feel a hell of a lot more optimistic about United than I did on Sunday. So maybe that's the way to go, eh? That could be United's new sponsorship deal. Tesco pear cider.
You know what's funny about this? The season hasn't even started and he's already knocking them back.
Yeah, you wait till you see me in November.
You have less hair than us put together.
No, I'm very optimistic. I've got it all off my chest on Sunday night, and now I'm thinking, yeah, onwards and upwards.
Okay, see, positivity, positive thinking. Let's hope it kind of, I don't know, reflects to the players, and then they can get some of your energy. I don't know. Or might go pear shaped.
Yeah,
which is a little more likely. Anyway.
More likely, yeah.
There you go. Right. Let's talk about the season preview then. Let's talk about certain teams. I think we'll talk about your team, Arsenal. Shall we start with them? Because I remember when we first started doing this show back in 2012.
Sure.
You were Gazidis out. I hate Gazidis.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. You know, we've got to stick with Arsene Wenger. He's the man. Fast forward 6 years. I know your attitude towards Monsieur Wenger kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't want to ask you about how you feel about Wenger leaving because that's done. But let's talk about Unai Emery and his signings.
Okay.
What have you made of it so far?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say 6 years ago when we started this, I joined the waiting list to get a season ticket, and I got it last week. So, and then I became unemployed, so I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. But there you go. So, yeah, Unai Emery. I've actually spent a lot of time watching the training videos, as probably many an Arsenal fan has done, that they put on Arsenal.com. And I'm not going to say Unai Emery has done something fantastic, but what I will say is his number 2, Caicedo, has really, really impressed me. His assistant manager that he brought in has been working the players very, very hard. So it looks like they've got a good team spirit together. It looks like they're working harder defensively. Something that I've noticed Caicedo doing, which I've been talking about for Arsenal for a long, long time as well, is being prepared for the second ball. Right. And he has been working them very, very hard in throwing in a second ball every opportunity he can. So hopefully it's going to have the right effect, and we'll see. It's definitely going to be a different Arsenal, that's for sure. As for Gazidis, obviously there's talk about him going to AC Milan. How much of that is true, I'm not sure. But it's taken him, 9 years, I think, to actually get his way, to actually do what he was brought in to do. He's made a lot of changes. We'll find out this year if they're for the good or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the person that seems to be dominating Arsenal stories at the moment. That's Stan Kroenke, Silent Stan. It looks like he's going to take over the club.
Yeah.
Usmanov's finally given up. He's tapped out.
Yeah, he has.
What's your feeling about
Not
this?
good. Not good at all. And I know how you feel about the Glazers at United, and Kroenke is doing exactly the same thing as what they've done. He's borrowed £500 million from Deutsche Bank, and he's going to use the money from Arsenal to pay it off. Exactly what the Glazers have done at United. It hasn't been a good thing for United, fair to say. It's doubtful going to be a good thing for Arsenal, and it's not good. I'm not saying that Usmanov would have been better. No one knows if Usmanov would have been better as an owner or not. He wasn't on the board. We don't know what he would or could have done. I mean, there was probably talk about him saying, "I'm going to sign this person or that person or whoever, and I'm going to back Arsene Wenger and spend however many hundreds of millions." You don't know. You can't say that he would have been better or not. It's impossible. But I do think that what's going to happen now, though, is he'll be putting his money into Everton.
Okay. What does this takeover mean for Arsenal then, in your opinion?
The takeover, I think, is bad news.
For what reason, though?
For the same reason as you think the Glazers are bad for United.
So they're leeching money out of the club?
They're leeching money out of the club.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. They're
leeching money out of the club. Not only is he taking out this loan, he has also used Arsenal as collateral to finance a new stadium in the US as well.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not good. It's not good. We could be in a very, very bad position very, very quickly.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, what is good at the moment, though? You've brought in some pretty decent players, I'd say. You know, you've filled some gaps.
Yeah.
The goalkeeping position is now fully covered. I think Bernd Leno's coming. He will do a decent job. Finally, Petr Cech has got someone to compete with.
Yep.
You've got Lichtsteiner, full of experience.
Yep.
Even at 34, he can still do a job. You've got Torreira.
Yeah.
That's coming from Sampdoria. Very highly rated. Guendouzi's come in. A lot of people rate him highly. And then Papastafopoulos. I can say it because I'm Greek.
Yeah. We'll go with Socrates.
Yeah, just for the benefit of everyone else.
Yeah.
Right? So come on. Out of all those signings, which one of them excites you most?
Which one excites me most?
Yeah.
This can sound a bit boring, but Leno and Torreira excite me the most. The thing about the Arsenal signings this summer, every signing has had a specific purpose. It's been very organised and very targeted. They needed a central defender. They needed somebody who's going to be just for defending, just to get in front of the ball and put in a tackle. Socrates, whatever you want to call him. He was the man. They went and got him. They wanted a holding midfielder, someone who's a bit dynamic and do more than just win the ball. Torreira looks like the perfect fit.
Right. But
a lot of pressure is on this kid's shoulders because he is filling a very, very important position that hasn't been filled for a long time at Arsenal. Lichtsteiner is clear what his role is, and that is to give Bellerin a right kick up the, and to show him a thing or two. And plus, Lichtsteiner comes with a bit of an aggressive side, shall we say?
Yeah.
You know, again, something that's been missing from Arsenal. And Leno, well, Cech was going to need to be replaced at some point, regardless. He's 36 years old now. Leno's at a good age. He's had some good experience. He's capped by Germany. Okay, he's not the Germany #1. No fault of his own. There's just better players in front of him. That doesn't mean that he's not a good player, though. So for me, it's been very targeted. It's been very organised. You could say, yeah, but none of them have played in the Premier League before, which is a very valid point. Looking at Guendouzi in training and in pre-season, he needs to release the ball a little bit quicker. He's going to learn that the hard way in the Premier League. But you can see there's a player there.
Okay.
Yeah, so overall, I'm satisfied. None of them are superstars, but they have been very specifically targeted.
I think this is the first summer that Arsenal have gone into the season for a long time. In fact, probably since 2012 when you guys signed Podolski and got rid of Van Persie, that you guys are quite optimistic.
Yeah, optimistic because it looks like it's more organised for a change. This time last year, it was like, oh, Lamar, will they, won't they? Lacazette, will they, won't they? Let's throw in Mbappe's name just to get people excited, and nothing really came of anything. Yeah. It seemed very unorganised, very, like I said, this year's been targeted. Last season, it wasn't targeted. It's like, shall we, shan't we, maybe this guy, but what about, I don't know, let's just see what happens sort of thing. There was no organisation. But this year has been very properly organised. And that's why I think it could actually work.
But do you guys worry about the quality of the Arsenal signings though? Because,
well,
for example, like I still don't think your centre back position is strong enough at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. I think we could have done with another centre half, personally. Like I said, that they're not superstars, but they've been recruited for a specific purpose.
Yeah,
they're not superstars. Personally, you're right. I think another centre back would have been best because obviously Mertesacker has retired. Mustafi has shown that he's not good enough. Koscielny he's injured obviously until at least December. Plus he's not getting any younger. Plus he's actually starting to, well, more than starting to. He has been regressing for a while now, which leaves us with realistically Socrates, Holding, and the other young Greek guy Mavropanos, because Chambers has gone out on loan. So yes, you're right. I think we are still weak defensively. Yeah.
I think for me that's the one area where I do think Arsenal, because even when I watched Socrates like a couple of seasons ago, he didn't look like a great player, and I was quite surprised that Arsenal actually went to go and buy him. So maybe Unai Emery's looking at him thinking, I might not need the best players, but if I can create a unit, he's got the players to create a unit. And actually coach the players. So maybe Socrates is a player that he thinks that he's got enough there to work with to try and improve him.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully. I also think there's another side to it as well. And I think Gazidis and Mislins have been very much involved in signing Socrates because they have been talking a lot about the other young Greek defender, Mavropanos. And I think they brought in Socrates as a mentor for him.
Okay.
Well, yeah, because I think they see big things for that kid. And I mean, we saw towards the end of the season, there is a good defender there. He was prone to a mistake, but what do you expect from such a young kid? You can't expect anything more than what he did, really. But I do think that Socrates coming has got a lot to do with mentoring him.
Cool. Right, let's move on to another club, another London club, Crystal Palace. Chris, this is your stage, my friend. You've held on to Wilf Zaha, which I guess is great news. You brought in Czech Kuyat, so I think it's going to be a fantastic signing for you guys. Max Meyer as well. What are your thoughts for the upcoming season?
The biggest win, I'll probably sound like Parish's kind of, biggest support here, but the biggest win is actually keeping Wilf Zaha, as he's often touted throughout the transfer window. He wasn't going to go. He just brings that kind of, special element to the club that I think if he had gone to the likes of Chelsea or Spurs, the fans there wouldn't have afforded him the same sort of support that we would have. You see him on Match of the Day when he's doing his highlights and his tricks. But, we watch him for 90 minutes week in, week out, and there are times throughout the game where he's not doing that. But the fans don't get on his back, and he's very much part of the club and of the ethos of the club. So keeping him around is massive. Bringing in players, Kouate, I think, is going to be a great signing. Bit of steel in that midfield. He's going to provide competition. for James MacArthur, Jeffrey Schlupp that are kind of playing the centre mid now. Losing Kabay was a big loss. I think the club hadn't planned for it. By all accounts, they had offered him a contract, and the first kind of indication that he wasn't signing was when the Emirati team actually tweeted a picture of him holding up a shirt. So that kind of set the club back a couple of weeks. But bringing in Max Meyer, behind the scenes, Dougie Freeman and the scouting team had done a lot of work and obviously had fended off suspected interest from the European big boys. And it's a win-win for Palace. If he doesn't perform, then we've got him on a free, and he goes in a couple of years and hasn't reached his potential. If he does reach that kind of European top boy potential that we've heard in the past few years, Palace could be in for a windfall in a couple of years. 30-40 million plus potentially we're looking at in a couple of years. And for a club like Palace, those transfer fees can't be ignored. I mean, we've done things very well this year, and the fact we've only spent 10 million and brought in 4 players that could comfortably play in the first team and are expected to be in, week out. No longer splashing 30 million on the likes of Benteke and Mamadou Sakho, and then leaving ourselves hung and dry in January when we do need to bring a player in because undoubtedly half the squad will get injured. So yeah, another loan space available in January as well. So it's been a worryingly productive window, and looking forward to the likes of next year as well. There's obviously going to be money held over. So yeah, I'm actually worried that the club are thinking ahead for once.
Tell me something. Do you think Roy Hodgson will be there next season? I know it's a bit of a silly question to ask from now, but we've got to consider his age, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's his 71st birthday today, so happy birthday, Roy. Hope you're watching. But yeah, he was always going to be brought in as a stopgap, keep the team up, and then worry about it this pre-season. But he had such an impact on the club that they've offered him a new contract. But the hope is that Stephen Reid, who's one of the coaches there at Palace, is obviously being mentored by him. Hopefully, someone of that ilk could be groomed within the club to take over in a year's time. Working under Roy and Ray Lewington. It's what Dougie Freeman had when he was manager for Palace. He had Lenny Lawrence as an old steady head behind him. And I wouldn't be against the idea of Palace bringing in a manager next season, but keeping Roy around as an advisor. Kind of, what Arsenal were hoping with Wenger might do, and take a step upstairs and kind of mentor a young guy.
Tell me something. Loftus-Cheek. Are you surprised Hodgson didn't go in for him for another loan deal? Because Chelsea signed 2 central midfielders to add to their growing list of personnel in that area.
By all accounts, the club did everything they could. Speaking to people that have got good connections, actually Loftus-Cheek wasn't sold on coming back to the club. He performed well in the World Cup, got probably more opportunities than he would have expected when he was initially announced in that 23, and fully expected to be a Chelsea regular. We had inquired multiple times, and Hodgson came out and said, we'll do whatever we needed to do to get him in. But ultimately, if you've got the prospect of playing for Chelsea, the team that you came through as an academy player, then you're going to want to stay at the club. Obviously, they then bring in 2 or 3 midfielders. His chances are diminished. And with the loan window kind of closed, transfer window closed so early on, Palace weren't able really to do a deal.
Fair enough. So what do you expect this coming season? Because, as I said before, you've kept Zaha. Andros Townsend hasn't gone to Newcastle as many people thought he would. You got a pretty settled back line. I don't know if Dan is going to be ready for the season. Is he back from injury, do you know?
He's not appeared in pre-season, but I mean, Tompkins and Sakho have been, they've played 15 games together. We've not lost a Premier League game with those two as centre-back pairing. They've got a great understanding. The beauty compared to what we had last year is, like we spoke earlier, it's a settled team, settled formation. The club have actually played double the amount of pre-season friendlies. You've got a starting 11 now that have played 2 or 3 pre-season friendlies together, performed well. They looked fit. They look like they're ready to go. ultimately, for a club like Palace and probably another 12 clubs in the Premier League, you need to get to that 40-point mark. How quickly we can do that will determine our end goal. Safety is always number one priority, and if we can get mid-table on a cut run like we did under Pardew, then that'd be brilliant.
Well, as long as you don't have a bad start like you did last summer.
Yeah, I don't think it could get any worse.
Precisely. Matt, let's talk about two clubs close to where you're, close to your vicinity, Everton and Liverpool. Both have spent big this summer. Everton have gone crazy transfer deadline day. They signed Andre Gomez. They brought in Yerry Mina, Bernard as well. This seems to be a different kind of revolution to what Ronald Koeman had.
Well, you say that, but then if you think back to this time last year, there was a slight sort of optimism amongst Evertonians I know that brought in players, and they thought that this was going to be not their season, but there was a definite optimism that obviously never materialised under Ronald Koeman. I think they've done well without sounding patronising to Everton at all, because they're obviously a huge club. I don't think a lot of Evertonians really expected a lot out of this transfer window, and I think a lot will be quite pleased with the business they've done today. I suppose a lot of it, though, ask me this question again at Christmas time, because it's all very well making transfer deadline day signings and everything looks optimistic, and spending money is one thing, but I mean, like I say, you look back to the beginning of last season, there seemed to be a lot of people not confident, but quietly pleased with the business that Everton had done. And as we know, it pretty much went downhill from we won the first game against Stoke on the opening day, and then after that, it all went horribly wrong, and it didn't get much better, did it? Up until when Big Sam left. So I think Evertonians have maybe learnt from that experience. I think they may be thinking, okay, we've done a bit of business, we're pleased with what we've done, but let's not get carried away. We've got 2 or 3 players. Obviously, Richarlison came in sometime before the transfer deadline. It was obviously a deal they wanted to do, and the manager was keen on when he first arrived here on Merseyside. So I'd say that one probably means more to the club and to the manager maybe than what happened today. But they obviously mean a bit of business. The pressure's put on Everton now because of what Liverpool have done in this transfer window. Again, not so much today or the last couple of days, but they've been pretty smart with the business they've done in the last couple of weeks. As we spoke about on Sunday, they seem to have looked at what they've needed to address. They've targeted the players they wanted, they knew they needed, and they've gone out there and they've got it done. I thought they might grab an extra 1 or 2 towards the end of this window. There was talk that Fekir might still be kicking around, but they've obviously don't like what they've seen from him. So I'm pleased that Everton have made a bit of a fist of it, again without sounding patronising, but they're obviously looking. I just don't think they can afford to have another season like last season. I mean, for one reason or another, it nearly split the club in 2 last season. You had the managerial problems, you had the sort of Rooney situation that obviously isn't there now. So I think it's a bit of a clean slate for Everton, and I think with these 3-4 signings they've made in this window and a new manager, then they've really got to try and kick on, because if you get to Christmas and Everton are struggling again, and I mean, how many managerial casualties can they have? I mean, the club can't afford to keep doing it. So I hope for their sake, and from a Merseyside football point of view, I'd like to see them. Like to see them do well. Like I said, Liverpool seem to have known exactly what they wanted to do from the start. So, and as you well know, they're the team I tend to fancy for this season, as much as it pains me to say it. But I think Everton could be the A team to watch, not the team to watch, but a team to that would definitely be interesting to see how they play under a new, sort of fresh, ambitious coach.
The thing is, when you look at their recruitments, they've brought in players that are better than what they had before. If you look at Lucas Digne, I know I think he'll probably take Leighton Baines' position. Leighton Baines is another year older. As good as he's been at left back, he's kept that position to himself. And I think when you got a player like that, no matter how professional you are, he's always got that in the back of his mind, whereby I've got no competition. So
but I look at Everton and I look at their signings and I'm thinking, where are the goals going to come from?
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Where are the goals?
Well, they got Cenk Tosun, haven't they?
Well, this is what happened last season, wasn't it? They had about 4 number 10s.
Yeah.
Have a number 9, and I mean, obviously one of those is left now, Rooney, but they still haven't really got that 20-goal a season man that they need. I mean, they've got some great creative number 10s and going forward, but you still got to find the net. And I can't, like you say there, I can't see. It's great having creative players, but you need somebody there on the, a Lineker or that kind of player that's going to tap them in from 6.
Don't forget they still have Eman and Chris. Just they're struggling for some goals. So
yeah,
I still don't think it's enough. Like you said, I mean, if you think that they've got Bernard, they've got Richarlison, they've got Balassi, and they've still got Sigurdsson, who kind of had a bit of a flaky season last year. So again, a lot of central attacking talent. Do they have enough on the wings? I'm not too sure.
They had no pace either, did it? I mean, I know Rooney got blamed for a lot of that, but that was a criticism of Everton a lot last season. Was it was just so slow. They'd win the ball in midfield and then it just stopped, and they were pretty painful to watch. I mean, the few games I went to go and see, and it was, there didn't seem to be anyone there driving them forward. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about this in a minute still, but it's similar to the United situation as well. You need players there that are going to turn defence into attack or midfield into attack, and you can have as many good number 10s as you want, but they mean nothing really unless you've got somebody there to make those runs and drive the team forward.
Yeah, the thing is, when you have so many managerial changes over a period of time, you're constantly having players coming in and out, so you can't get any momentum, any consistency. And if you look at Everton over the past few years, they had Moyes, Martinez. Who they have after Martinez?
Koeman.
Yeah, Koeman in there.
Sam Allardyce.
Yeah.
So you got 4 or 5 managers there already. Now you got Marcus Silva, who, let's be honest, his track record isn't great. But
there's something about him though. There must be something about him because
very short term. He's very short term. He doesn't last long. Did he? He only lasted, was it less than a season at Olympiacos or just over a season at Olympiacos?
Yeah, but not many managers last there because
that's true. Yeah,
I think this is their sort of Waterloo in a way, if you want. I think Everton really need to have a manager, not a new Moyes, because I don't think that will ever happen. A manager, whatever it was, 12 years or however long he was there. But I think Everton need a manager that they can invest in, not financially, but time-wise. They can say, right, this is our guy. We're going to move forward with him. We're going to put a bit of trust in him. He's a young lad. He can attract reasonably attractive players to the club. You can't keep chopping and changing. Even Koeman, I mean, he's a top-class manager and he was a great player, but even he seemed a bit yesterday's man. I think clubs now really want a young, progressive manager that they can think, right, I mean, I'm going to tick it off the list because I mentioned his name about 50 times on Sunday, but a bit in the way like Klopp has done with Liverpool. You go, right, okay, you're not going to turn things around overnight, but we're going to give you 4 or 5 years and we're going to trust you. And in that time, we hope you change it round. And you can't get to Christmas and start panicking and start saying, right, okay, we're going to make a change. Because financially, I don't think clubs can afford it. Because God knows, I think they paid Big Sam about £5 million.
Yeah.
And God knows what else, the other managers that have come and gone. So I think this time for Everton, they've really got to see it through and trust the guy. And I know he hasn't got a long track record up till now, but maybe he hasn't had this opportunity up until now. I mean, I suppose you could say Watford was an opportunity, but I think he always fancied a top 6, top 8 English. Yeah.
The thing I think for Everton is the fact that they can't really. I don't think any manager will get that time anymore because clubs invest so much money in transfer fees now that they could just simply look at a manager. £5 million on Sam Allardyce is better than him getting a club being relegated and losing £99 million a season, or the risk of going down to the Championship. So the fact that obviously they had Moyes there for such a long time, the thing about Moyes and his sort of ilk is that they're able to have a young team, and they're able to coach those young sort of unearthed or rough diamonds effectively, and they're able to bring those players through the academy. And obviously, as they improve, the manager also improves along with them, similar to how Pochettino's doing at Spurs. But now, because teams like Everton are buying, in a sense, ready-made replacements for all the players that were there from last season, that comes with an expectation of we have to do well now. And if there isn't, if we don't show that improvement, then there's something wrong with the manager, because at the end of the day, he's the cheapest cog to change.
Yeah, and let's face it, it's not just an Everton thing. I mean, I mentioned Klopp earlier. I mean, do you remember, was it last October when Liverpool went to the Wembley and Tottenham beat them 4-1?
Yeah.
I remember the few weeks after that, and then obviously a couple of months later they got knocked out of the FA Cup against West Brom, and people were genuinely questioning Klopp, the Liverpool fans, saying, "Oh, well, is he the guy to, that's another season without a trophy and all this?" I mean, ultimately they nearly won the European Cup, but people are very quick to turn. So it's not just an Everton thing, but I just think from an Everton point of view, from a club point of view, they're talking about moving to a new stadium, which, from what I see, going down to the Bramley Moor Dock, there's no sign of that happening just yet. But if they're going to be this progressive club that are going to move on and kick on and become one of the big boys, so to speak, they need to have a bit of stability, because you can't just keep doing... I know why they got Sam Allardyce in last year, because there was a genuine fear that they were going to get relegated. I mean, there really was for that October, November time. There were people there thinking if we go down, we could suffer big time here, and that's why they got Allardyce in, and he did the job that he was paid to do. But you can't base your season on ups and downs like that. You need, even if it's a solid top 8, 9, 10 finish for Everton, that's probably not a bad thing, and if you can consolidate and then move on. But the roller coaster ups and downs, boom and bust thing that they seem to have gone through the last few years, it's just not doing the club any good whatsoever. So personally, I've got no vested interest apart from a few good mates of mine who are Blues, but I'd like to see it work, because I think they've got a lot to offer as a club. But if they're not careful, then they're going to get left behind, like a lot of so-called big clubs have done in English football recently.
Yeah, it would be nice to see a team like Everton up there competing with the rest, because obviously they are a big team. I think the only thing I could say about Marcus Silva is that, as we've seen when he was at Watford, his head can be turned. Now, if one of the big Portuguese teams like a Sporting or a Benfica or even Porto change managers or sack their manager and they approach him, what's to say he's not going to do what he did to Watford?
Come on, I mean, what credentials has he got to try to even throw his hat into the ring for those jobs now? I mean, he's done a half decent job at Watford and he's done a half decent job, but I mean, he's got an Everton job, which is he's got a big job at a big English club. Yeah, fair enough. If he wins them a trophy or an FA Cup or he gets Champions League qualification, then he's got every right to look at bigger jobs around Europe. But at the minute, I'd say this is his biggest job to date. And he's got to fulfil something in that job before he can even look anywhere else.
I agree, but on the flip side, Sporting Lisbon, they appointed Sinisa Mihajlovic before he walked after 4 days. And he hasn't done anything ever in his managerial career, apart from getting Joe Hart on loan for Torino.
Have they even got the money to be able to take a manager out of the Premier League?
Who?
The club like Sporting Lisbon.
Sporting, they're owned by a billionaire, mate. Fair
enough.
if Silva can get a job like that and command that, I'd love to know how he does his job interviews, because I mean, I'm not saying he's punching above his weight, not in the slightest, but he needs to achieve something before he can start thinking he's the next big thing. Because yeah, well, it's a bit like we saw it with I'm trying to think, who's the guy that went in Chelsea and ended up in Russia? What's his name?
Villas-Boas.
Yeah, Villas-Boas. He was a bit like that, wasn't he? He was a sort of next. Everyone thought he was the next big thing, and he just ended up becoming the next big thing, and it wasn't a big thing. So, and I'm not writing off Silva. I really think he's got a lot to offer, and I hope he works out. But I think one step at a time. To be honest, I think you can. If he does well at Everton, then he could do a lot worse than staying where he is for 4 or 5 years and building something there.
Mm. Fair enough.
I think there's more to it with Marco Silva. I think there is something that people have seen, as in directors of football and the people in charge. They've seen something, or he's shown them something to be able to get these opportunities. And I personally think that the day of the manager is dead. Thank you. Yeah, he's not a manager; he's a coach.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, well, you just mentioned the word coach. You got two head coaches that have been around the game for quite a while. You got Rafa Benitez at Newcastle and Pellegrini that's coming at West Ham. Chris, what do you make of both managers? Because you got two different sides of the spectrum here. You've got one manager who's come in, has hardly been given any money to spend, as in in Rafa Benitez, and now you've got Pellegrini has walked into West Ham and he's been given a war chest. Now, with Newcastle, it's been another underwhelming transfer window. I know they kept Lascelles, which I guess is a good thing, but do you think Benitez will stick it out this time?
I mean, my granddad was a Geordie, so they're kind of my second club. So I hope for their sake that they do. I mean, the fact that he kind of stuck it out with them and went down to the Championship was a shock to many people to start with, and the fact that he's continuing despite board constraints, etc. To keep on producing results. They stayed up comfortably in the end last season with a squad that was still filled with mainly Championship quality players. The worry for obviously Newcastle is that eventually I can imagine that his tolerance is just going to go. I know there are big clubs all over Europe that would love to have Benitez as their manager, and I think if it gets to January and he's Newcastle in a precarious position and he's not afforded any kind of money to reinforce and work his miracles, I think that's going to be the point where he's going to go, well, sorry, I'm off. And I don't think he'll be short of suitors that will want his services, pretty much anywhere in Europe.
That's right. I know he's brought in Shah from Deportivo, the central defender, so I think he'll be a pretty decent signing. And Salomon Rondon, they brought him in on loan, straight swap with Gale, which is a bit of a peculiar one because I really don't remember Rondon doing anything to pull up trees, so to speak. But
yeah, he scored that great goal in the FA Cup, and that's about it, I think, last season. So
there you go. So, Eman, what about West Ham then? Because it's the Pellegrini revolution, isn't it? I mean, it just seems that new manager, the board have given him money to spend, and all of a sudden, Gold and Sullivan aren't the Dildo brothers anymore. They're the chairman that you can trust, and Karen Brady, well, she defecates rainbows.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see this from West Ham, to be honest, because it's been a long time. They've been vying with Spurs in terms of the two joke London clubs. Which one of them is the more unhappier out of the two of them? And for once, West Ham aren't the butt of the jokes. So it's good to see that for once West Ham are actually reaping the benefits of their new stadium, because the fact that they're saving so much millions from the fact that they're paying maybe £2 or £3 million a season to be there. So all that money is basically, they're saving so much money there. Obviously, the Dildo brothers are billionaires, so they do have the money to actually spend. So you are actually seeing a coordinated recruitment strategy and a coordinated recruitment of the manager as well. So they've brought in Pellegrini, who actually does play attractive football. He's actually able to coach young players, which is also another incentive, because obviously he's done that at Villarreal, he's done that at City, and he's done that at Real Madrid as well. So you can actually see that they're actually spending money, and you can actually look at West Ham, apart from maybe another centre-back or another striker, their squad seems like it's a squad that could actually challenge for the top 10, whereas last season there were so many holes.
But the thing is, when I look at the players they brought in 10 players, 10 or 11 players, and they look good on paper, don't get me wrong, but it reminds me of when Harry Redknapp was their manager, when he brought in players like Radu Choyu and Dimitrescu and Kitson and Hartson. It's almost as if like Pellegrini is like the Harrods Harry now, in the sense that he spent all this money on, Yarmolenko, who didn't really do too much at Dortmund. He's brought in Lucas Perez, that pretty much flopped at Arsenal. Issa Diop, we don't really know too much about him. He's a promising youngster. And then there's Jack Wilshere. I mean, I'm interested to know how much they spent on his wages and signing on fee. So Felipe Anderson that's coming with a big fee. I'm not saying that they're going to fail, but it just seems that a lot of players have come in a short space of time. I'm interested to see how well they gel and mold.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that the good thing with that, I think, is if Pellegrini can actually nail down his actual starting 11 very quickly, then it will give him a chance. Because for me personally, I think Alex Ferguson used to say that whenever you're going into a transfer window, you don't really want to buy more than 4 players, because in terms of integration, it just becomes a nightmare. So again, I mean, you've seen it with Liverpool, with Spurs, with Everton last season. If you bring in too many players, it just basically doesn't go well. So again, it will be whether the players that they have signed that do go into the first 11, can they perform and hit the ground running? If they can do that, then it's going to be okay for West Ham. But if not, then he's just going to be chopping and changing, and that's just going to cause more problems than answers. So.
What I don't understand. What is the big deal about Pellegrini? Why are they backing Pellegrini when they haven't backed people before?
Well, who are they going to back? David Moyes.
But what is the big deal about Pellegrini? I don't get it. I don't see it.
Well, has he not won the Premier League?
Who was the competition?
But it doesn't matter. He still won it. He still won it.
I think when you consider the pedigree of the type of manager that he is, really he should be nowhere near West Ham, in my opinion. Like when you think about the fact that he was former Real Madrid manager, former Man City manager. I think he got the highest points total to never win La Liga, and obviously he won the title with City. There's no way he should be at West Ham, but obviously they're paying him a good wage, and obviously he's there for the project, you know. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, in a way, that's the appeal, isn't it? I mean, when you've done that much as a coach, manager, that's the appeal, isn't it? Your next project, your next challenge. I mean, I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but maybe that's what he sees. I can't see. I mean, how we said about Hodgson being 71. How old is Pellegrini? He must be late 60s.
Similar age, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's about 68 or something.
So this probably
110.
I was going to say, looks about 102.
Yeah. he looked like that about 20 years ago. But he's probably realistically thinking this is possibly his last big job in football. So he might think, well, why not make a go of it? I think good luck to him. I mean, West Ham have been a bit of a mess, haven't they, the last couple of years with the management situation, the ground, the board. I mean, this could be their sort of statement of intent. I mean, it could go, if they haven't won a game in 5 matches, then it could go horribly wrong. But I think if you're a coach with that sort of experience, and he's obviously in a comfortable position financially in his lifestyle, I think you could do worse than give it a go there, because I think it's a bit like Everton. I know I don't want to compare Everton to West Ham, but if he got West Ham to finish 7th or 8th and get to a FA Cup semi-final or what have you, I think that would turn that club around, really, without, again, not wanting to sound patronising, but it's easy to get carried away with clubs looking for a Champions League and winning the league and what have you, but there are certain clubs that have got a passionate fan base and everything around them that it would only take a good cup run, League Cup, FA Cup, Europe, whatever, to really galvanise a team. So you know, if he uses that experience that he's got and a bit of money he's been able to spend, I think West Ham fans could do a lot worse, to be honest.
See,
well, they could have David Moyes, I guess.
I still don't buy into this whole Pellegrini has pedigree. I'm sorry, I don't see it.
Is there any particular reason?
For me, he's a fraud. He didn't really do anything at Real Madrid. He won the Premier League here in his first season at City, but who was in charge of Man United at the time?
I don't know.
The nut job, LVG.
Was it Van? Was it
Yeah.
Loopy? Okay.
So who was in charge of Chelsea at the time? It was Jose Mourinho when he first came back to Chelsea. No point in asking who was in charge at Arsenal, because we all know who was in charge there. And Arsenal were never going to win the Premier League regardless. Same with Liverpool. There was no competition that season. The following season, who won the Premier League?
Chelsea, wasn't it?
Leicester.
Was it Leicester?
Leicester. So why weren't Man City more competitive? Man City weren't even second that season, remember? Arsenal finished second that season. You know, and I think Spurs were third and then City were fourth. After that, who won the Premier League?
Yeah, but wasn't But that second season where Pellegrini was in charge, didn't they kind of undermine him by announcing Pep was going to be the next manager?
Yeah, he was a bit of a stooge that second season. It was almost like they knew he was going to exit stage left. So I don't think that was his fault necessarily.
Still, I don't personally. I don't see it. I don't see what the big deal is about Pellegrini. All right, he's probably a good coach, a good manager, but is he a top manager? No.
Well, the interesting comparison we've got here, and I keep bringing back to West Ham and Everton for some reason, but you've got a young, unproven manager who seems to be favourite for every job going in Silva at Everton, and an old hand who's won the league and been all around Europe at West Ham. So, I mean, which one would you prefer? The one that hasn't done anything and seems to leave at the drop of a hat, or one that has got a proven track record?
Or
no, it's a fair point. But like I said, there must be something about Marco Silva. Otherwise, he must interview really, like you said, he must really well, or he must have some really, really good ideas that he hasn't been able to put into effect yet. You know, like remember Mike used to say, he used to go on and on and on about Allardyce for England, and that he interviewed so well, but they didn't hire him at the time because he came with this baggage.
Yeah.
You know, there must be something about Marco Silva that has got him into this position. He's a young, hopefully progressive coach, but there must be something that we just don't know. We haven't seen it yet.
Okay, well, that could be said about Eddie Howe.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's move on to Bournemouth.
For, Everton.
Okay, well, fine. Well, let's move on to Bournemouth then, because Chris, I'm looking at the South Coast clubs. I'm looking at Bournemouth. I'm looking at Brighton, Southampton. Personally, I believe 2 out of those 3 will go down this season. I have my reasons.
You don't like the South Coast?
No, I've got nothing against the South Coast, but I think Bournemouth will be one of them. That's my personal opinion. I think as great as Eddie Howe has been for Bournemouth, and as loved as he is in the media, I think he's hiding behind a few journalists here, and I think he's getting a bit lucky because other teams below his team have been pretty poor. So I think it's their turn to go down this season. I also think Southampton will go purely because of Mark Hughes. I think it's time he finally got someone relegated. I mean, he did it with Stoke. Yeah. Even though he left halfway through the season.
Yeah. He's another one I don't get. He just always managed to luck into a job.
Well, good job Rodri isn't on here because he really lay into Mark Hughes. Leslie, as I like to call him, because Mark Hughes is dead to me. It's Leslie Hughes. So, Chris, what do you reckon the South Coast clubs? I know you'd like to see Brighton go down, wouldn't you?
I was about to say, you picked the one team that not to go down. I wanted to say, I mean, Bournemouth, plucky little Bournemouth, the team that everyone wants to get behind, that keeps on managing to spend more money than half the teams around them. I mean, Eddie Howe was touted to come into us a few years ago before we appointed Dougie Freedman, and he went to Burnley instead, and never really cut his mustard there. And it's kind of Bournemouth and Eddie Howe will kind of work together. I don't really understand him going further on. I definitely agree with him having his way with journalists. He gets away with a lot. Having seen Bournemouth play twice a year, since they've been promoted, they're a very dirty and very sly side. The likes of, I know Harry Arter's moved on, but in that midfield, it'd be sly kicks when the referee's not watching. Leaving a foot in a bit too long. And Howe's never really come under any criticism for that style of play from the media. You look at managers in the past, Allardyce was criticised for his long ball at West Ham. Other teams been, lambasted for being dirty, but no one ever speaks about Bournemouth that way. But I think with the money they've spent on players that aren't really proven, they signed the Colombian midfielder, defensive midfielder, I've forgot his name now. But he, a lot of money on someone that's going to just sit in the middle of the park and pass it 5 yards by all accounts. If they get off to a bad start, I can see the media turning on him early and asking, questions that he's probably not prepared to answer. Southampton were lucky to get away with it last year. They were very, very poor, under Pellegrini, and Hughes kind of got lucky with a couple of wins that kind of kept them up. Have they made the signings they need to rectify the mistakes last year? It's whether more Charlie Austin and another striker could stay fit. but that back line always looked like it was easily targeted, and they never really kind of got over the Van Dijk saga, I think. So I wouldn't be too upset if all three South Coast teams went down next season, because obviously Brighton just deserve to be back in the Championship as a Palace fan.
Just says it like it is. Well, look, I mean, with Southampton, I look at the players that that departed. Dusan Tadic has gone. They've replaced him with Mohamed El Yunusi from FC Basel, Norwegian international. They've signed Vestergaard at centre back. I don't know how good he will be, and look, it's going to be very, very difficult to replace Van Dijk. I don't know if the Danny Ings deal has actually happened, because apparently they were looking at. So I know he was a product of their youth academy. So I don't know. I really don't know what Mark Hughes has got planned with this squad. I just think it's such a basic squad. I mean, you take Ward-Prowse out of it, and what have you got? You really don't have anything, honestly.
Well, on the plus side, they haven't sold 3 players to Liverpool this year, which they
that's true. No one left to sell.
True, yeah, true. But then again, you look at Brighton. They brought in Jahan Bach, the striker that done really well at AZ Alkmaar in the Dutch league. They've strengthened in key areas. I know they brought in a fullback from Leipzig. And I think he's going to challenge Bruno for that right back spot. So I think they're better equipped to stay up than the others. I mean, you mentioned the fella that came in I've forgotten his bloody name now. He's gone out of my name. Jefferson Lerma, the Colombian that's coming for Bournemouth. He's got a bit of a dodgy disciplinary record. I mean, we thought that Vieira's one was pretty bad when he joined Arsenal, but this guy takes the mick a little bit.
He's a Bournemouth player you want, though. He'll fit in with that tough and rough kind of tackling style of play. So, they could probably have a match made in heaven.
No.
True.
I think there's 19 yellow cards in 33 appearances or something.
Fine. No problem.
Is VAR being used this season, by the way? Just want to double check. Yeah. So, I think 2 out of those 3 will go down, or I'm hoping anyway.
It's a shame we've actually slowly. I mean, Southampton, when they came back to the Premier League, they were brilliant, and they were surprising everyone. And they had good players like Lallana and Mane and Tadic.
I remember you loved them. They were Adkins
because they played really good football as well.
Yeah.
But they have very rapidly
3-legged dogs, as we call them.
Yeah, as you called them. They very rapidly regressed. And they're not half the team they were when they first came back.
I just hope
it'd be interesting to know what because a lot of their success was strength was their youth academy, wasn't it, for years and years? A lot of those players came through and ultimately left to go to Tottenham or Liverpool, or mostly Liverpool. I assume these players all don't come through at regular intervals. I suppose you might get a glut, and then you might get a load of decent players. So you don't know. They could be looking at another 4 or 5 years where there aren't this production line of talented players that have come through in the last 10 years that have made Southampton quite a stable club. So I mean, they obviously know that. We don't know that, but like you say, there doesn't seem to be that sort of energy of young players there now that there was probably 4 or 5 years ago, I'd say.
But the recruitment doesn't seem to be as effective now either. I mean, who was it? Who was the CEO?
The Italian fella.
Cortese.
Yes, yeah.
Cortese.
He did a brilliant job for them, and they never replaced him. And I think partly the problem for Southampton.
That's the thing. I was going to say that because their transfer strategy has changed a little bit, because I think it's last season or the season before, I think 60% of the club is actually owned by Chinese investors.
Mm-hmm.
So I think before it was Catherine Liebers, I think she was the owner. So she was a billionaire. So whenever they were selling players, they were actually spending money and actually trying to replace those players. But now you can kind of see that maybe the direction has changed now, where they sell a lot of their players and they're only spending a very, very small amount in terms of replacing those players. And that's why, they're regressing horrendous. Like, it's so bad.
Of a selling club, though, Southampton.
Say again?
They have, over the years, they have been the very definition of a selling club.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting to know how they sold it to Mark Hughes, to get him in there. I mean, I'm not saying they have to sell anything to Mark Hughes. He'd probably go anywhere for a managerial job. But and don't get me wrong, I love Mark Hughes as a player, but they must have some kind of plan in place there. They can't just think, well, we're going to go into this season hoping to avoid relegation, although maybe they are. But so the last few years they've had a bit of something about them, haven't they? A bit of hope, but I don't know.
That's why I think this season is going to be interesting, because there are quite a few teams, as we've discussed, like West Ham, Everton, Wolves, Fulham. Like they've all shown some ambition. Whereas last season, you had teams like West Brom, Southampton, Burnley, who were just pretty much doing nothing and just basically just wanted to stay in the league for the money.
Yeah, you've got that sort of. You've got 3/3 in a league now, in the Premier League now, and you're probably 4 quarters. You've got your top 6. Who probably 2 or 3 are going to win the league, and then you've got the Champions League. But then you've got that batch in the middle, and a lot of those are showing ambition. I mean, Burnley now are almost a top 10 club, aren't they? I mean, they've signed Joe Hart. They've got, years ago you'd have seen them as relegation fodder, whereas now they're looked upon as almost a steady mid-table team. And if teams like Southampton aren't careful, they're going to fall into that bracket of perpetual relegation candidates. So, which there are quite a lot of, and the more teams that come in with money that are prepared to buy well, like say Fulham have, and you've got Wolves with a lot of good potential there, then it wouldn't take a lot for teams like Southampton to become that team that could easily get lost and go adrift.
That's right. And you know what, Matt, I'm actually really glad you mentioned the promoted sides, because I look at Cardiff City. They've strengthened as much as they possibly can. Neil Warnock, we know how great a motivator he is, and he's done a fantastic job getting Cardiff back into the Premier League. But then when you look at Fulham, do you think they've won the transfer window? I mean, it happened a few years ago with Hull bringing in players, and we thought they did a great job. But Fulham have done something pretty new for a promoted club. Yeah.
Well, I would say they have, purely for getting Andre Schürrle, because I think he's still a fantastic player. I mean, I know, he's obviously been around a bit, but I think that's one of the best signings of the window for a club like Fulham. Again, without sounding patronising, I mean, what a great player to have in your ranks for a team that's just come into the Premier League. And he's by far not the only one. There's a good wealth of sort of relative talent there for a team that could surprise a lot of people. I can't see Cardiff doing too well, to be honest. I think they've pretty much done what they can do. But in terms of teams like Wolves and Fulham, you've got 2 clubs there that aren't afraid to puff their chest out and go and get. I mean, obviously Wolves have come in with some great talent that they came up with anyway. But the players that Fulham have brought in, you wouldn't put it past them being in the top 10. Rather than years ago, you'd have said, well, straight away they're going to fight relegation. But I wouldn't be putting my money on them to be relegated by any means, Fulham, purely because of the quality they've got in their squad.
The thing is, I guess it goes back to the same issue that we spoke about with West Ham. They brought in so many players. I mean, Jean-Michel Seri, I know he's very highly rated, but with the greatest respect to Ligue 1, it isn't the Premier League. Ramirez is coming from Besiktas. Schürrle, you mentioned Mitrovic. We know he's a fantastic footballer. Callum Chambers didn't quite make it at Arsenal. I think it's that his second loan spell.
Yeah.
He's been out. Yeah, he went to Middlesbrough, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then Vieto's coming from Atletico Madrid. I think he's a fantastic player. But then you've got Alfie Mawson. I think he was a revelation last season for Swansea. Had it not been for him, they'd have probably gone down a lot sooner. And I think they got Fosu Mensah on loan.
Yeah.
That one sneaked in.
But most important,
what depth you got there for a team that have just come up from the Championship? I'm not by all means saying that Fulham are hard up. They're not. But usually, historically, teams that come up and had to make do and mend and get through it the way they can. But what a load of decent players there you just named in terms of strength and depth. They're not all world beaters, but as a group of players, there's a hell of a lot of talent there that you would back them to over a season to at least be able to compete, I would think.
Do you know what? I'd have been, if I was a Fulham fan, I'd be more concerned if Sessegnon left.
What I was about to say, importantly, they managed to keep Sessegnon, who's obviously a star in the making. It's clear to see for everyone, really, that they're a good player.
I think it's now is teams they're not desperate for the money like they used to be 10, 20 years ago. You know, years ago, someone would show an interest in your player and you go, oh, yeah, we can get 20 million for him or whatever. But obviously now getting into the Premier League assures you a certain amount of money that you don't necessarily have to sacrifice your greatest asset. Obviously, once in a lifetime, you get a player like Van Dijk or someone that's going to be £100 million player. But the clubs like Fulham now, maybe Wolves, they can go, well, look, we can afford to keep these players for a couple of seasons to consolidate for 2 years and try and make a go of it. And then further down the line, if someone comes in and makes a huge bid that we can't resist, we'll accept it. But it's not like years ago where the clubs would come up and go, right, straight away we'll sell all our best players and then hope for the best. That's the way I see it, because obviously the amount of money in the game, that there's not that do or die way of thinking that there used to be.
The Fulham are cash rich, though. They have a very wealthy owner.
Didn't the owner want to buy Wembley at one point?
He still is.
That's about 9 billion.
That's right. Eman, talk to me about Wolves and Leicester, the two sides in the Midlands. Obviously, Leicester won the title a few years ago. They sold Riyad Mahrez, but they've really bolstered that back line. And here you got Wolves that have obviously, got the backing of Mendes, and they've really gone balls deep, haven't they, with the signings?
Yeah, definitely, man. Wolves they've been very impressive. I mean, the fact that they're able to purchase someone like Adama Traore as well. Obviously, they've got a strong Portuguese contingent with the likes of Costa, Neves, Diego Jota. I'm not sure if he's Portuguese or not, but they've obviously bolstered that with the likes of João Moutinho. I mean, like players like João Moutinho, really and truthfully, what are they doing at Wolves? Because he's someone who's played for some of Europe's top clubs. He's still only 31 or 32. So that's a massive coup, and I mean for 5 million, and a lot of top 6 clubs could have done with his pedigree in their ranks. So yeah, I think Wolves have done the right sort of thing, the right sort of things in the transfer market. I do think they could possibly struggle for goals. I think that's the one area where I don't really think that they've strengthened, because I'm not too sure who's there. Well, they've got Benik Afobe, I think.
Yeah, he went to Stoke.
Didn't they loan him out?
So they loaned him out.
Yeah,
Sorry, they loaned him out. Yeah. So no, yeah, it's weird because on the thing it says he went on loan as well. So it's just weird, like how that happened. But that's the only area of their team where I really think that they will struggle is the goals. You've seen it with the likes of Fulham, where they've been able to sign Mitrovic, Schürrle, and Vieto. So they've got players there that know where the back of the net is. Whereas Wolves, I don't really think that they have that. Leicester, on the other hand, I think they've done quite a lot of business actually. I think they signed a Croatian international, I think. So I think, Filip Benkovic.
Dinamo Zagreb,
Zagreb, they got. I think the only thing that was really a bit weird about Leicester's transfer window was the fact that they spent 12.5 million on Danny Ward, which kind of piqued my interest because I think they've got Kasper Schmeichel, they've got, is it Ben Hamer who's their second keeper? Or is he gone? I think
Ben.
He's gone to Huddersfield, but they've got another keeper there. And then they spent 12.5 million, and he's like their second highest. He's the second highest fee that they've paid this summer. So that was a bit weird. But again, they've been able to hold on to Maguire. They've still got Vardy. I think they should have done a bit more with the Mahrez money. In my view, I think they should have tried to bolster their wings. But I think they've got this Diakite or Diabate. Can't remember, but yeah, they've got other players that are coming in those attacking permissions. Hopefully, Damari Gray as well will be able to step up a bit more in terms of his progression this year to fill the void that Mahrez has left. But all in all, I think it's a good solid window from for Leicester.
That's right. And I think you mentioned Benkovic, they brought in the Turkish fellow Soyuncu as well. Freiburg is very heavily linked with Arsenal. And also Gezal from Monaco, who they're touting as the next Mahrez. You know, I think it's quite interesting how they're happy to leave. They're happy to let Mahrez go, and they fought tooth and nail to hold on to Maguire. Perhaps they thought that Maguire's got a more sell-on value. But just going back to Wolves quickly, they got Jimenez, that's a striker that's coming on loan from Benfica. But then Donka is the one from Anderlecht. I actually think he's going to be a fantastic player for them. Really strong, physical, middle of the park kind of solid central midfielder. So I think he'll be quite interesting to see this season. Chris, let's talk about Burnley. They're in the Europa League, another club that's maybe made a few questionable signings in this transfer window. The first player I can really think of at the top of my head is Joe Hart. I mean, they've already got two good goalkeepers. In he's come. That might rock the boat a little bit, no?
Oh, I did see they're just affected hoarding the entirety of the old England goalkeeping squad. I mean, Heaton's obviously been out injured. I think Pope's been injured coming back or obviously away from England. So they needed a keeper on a short term. I mean, they probably could have got Hart on loan, but they've obviously opted to sign him. But they haven't done that much business, I don't think. Obviously been preoccupied with the Europa League, and it's the reason they did really well last year is they were able to play pretty much the same 11 week in, week out. You know what you're going to get from Burnley. Hard to break down, hard to beat. They'll look to hit you on the counter. They've got the likes of Ashley Barnes, Vokes, that will put the ball in the back of the net. The question is whether, can that squad stay as fit as it did last year? And if they do, make somewhat of a cup run in the Europa League, playing Thursday and Sunday, what effect is that going to have on them? I don't think they'll do it as well as this year. But I think they'll comfortably avoid relegation. It'll be a mid-table finish for them, anywhere between 8th and 13th probably.
I think it's quite interesting. Their other choice of signatures, they brought in Ben Gibson, a central defender. He was once called up to the England squad. And then you got Matteo Vidra, who, again, that's a signing from left field. I know he was at Derby for a while. He was at Watford for a bit, West Brom. That's another one of those journeyman footballers that they've signed. And he's still quite young.
He's been around for a while. I remember him, when he hit the ground running at Watford on loan from, was it Udinese, when Watford had basically their B squad. And everyone was expecting him out of that to kind of get a Premier League move. And he did with West Brom, but sat on the bench for most of the season. Has not really kind of lived up to the hype. Was at Derby last year, and, a couple of goals here and there. But, they're playing 4-4-2, so he's going to be partnering another, probably Sam Vokes, maybe Ashley Barnes. It's how well they gel, because I think they've got a great understanding. Andre Gray, is he still at Burnley? So Vidra's going in, likely to be an impact sub, not expected to start week in, week out. And I wonder whether they could have invested that money in, perhaps more of a creative wide player. I know they had Aaron Lennon, but in that sort of style of player could benefit a Burnley that, if they're hard to break down, you want that bit of creativity. It's what Palace did under Pulis, defended for 75 minutes and then gave the ball to Balassi and Punchin to run at a tired team. But I really rate Dyche. I know we were after him last year when we went for De Boer, and there's probably envy in there that if he had to come in last season, what he could have done with a fairly decent transfer budget, I think Palace could have been in a very similar position to what Burnley were in last year.
No, absolutely agree with you, mate. Absolutely agree with you. Matthew, look at Huddersfield Town at the moment, mate. They're a team that's strengthened much more than Spurs have this summer. We'll talk about Spurs in a minute. They brought in Ben Hamer, Terence Congolo, Ramadan Sobhi from Stoke City, Bakuna from Groningen, Lossil from Mainz. A lot of players that, we haven't really heard of, but that seems to be the trait with Huddersfield. They made a few signings last season, which raised a few eyebrows. Do you think they're going to struggle again this season?
Well, on paper, you'd say yes. You'd probably say if you're going to pick 5 or 6 teams that are going to be in the relegation mix, yeah, you'd be stupid probably not to say Huddersfield are in there. But then the way they're going about their business and doing things, there's a quiet sort of confidence with them, and I think a lot of that comes from their manager. I think we've said, we were saying this before about Silva. There's certain managers that clubs are prepared to think, right, okay, we're going to give this guy a chance. He breeds confidence. He brings in players that may not have come to the club before. So I wouldn't panic too much if I were Huddersfield. And again, I think it goes back to what I was saying about maybe not having the pressure that teams would have had years ago. I mean, they've obviously got money coming into the club. They've got the TV money and the Premier League money and everything that goes with it. So they'd probably look back at what they achieved last season and say, well, okay, why can't we do that again? I'm not saying they're going to challenge for anything particular, but I would probably back Huddersfield over, like you said, probably over teams like Bournemouth and Southampton. And I don't know why. I don't know if that's just because they're new and fresh and interesting and exciting. But I wouldn't worry too much if I was they seem to just be riding the crest of a wave at the minute, and maybe they'll come back down to earth with a bump. I hope I haven't tempted fate.
Well, they're coming for you if it happens.
Well, yeah, I mean, they can blame me, but it's just you can't really. They're one of those teams you can't really make a case one way or the other. I mean, let's say logic would make you think that they're going to struggle. Of course, they will, and they probably should. But I see a lot there to be positive about. I mean, not having any vested interest in the club or knowing anything more than probably anyone else does. But I think the managers can take a lot of credit for that, and the owners there, and the guys that run the club. There isn't that sort of. They haven't got ideas above their station. They're not making brash statements. They're not trying to go out and blow their opponents out of the water. They seem to be approaching things with a considered approach and quite a level-headed outlook, really. And they seem to have not gone under the radar, because obviously Huddersfield will always go under the radar in the top flight. But there doesn't seem to be any kind of spotlight or pressure on the club, does there, really, in terms of what they're doing or what their expectation is, which is probably quite refreshing. Because that means they can just sort of go do what they're doing, and no one's really going to have much to say about them. A bit like me now. I mean, what can you what can you say about Huddersfield? I mean, I think they've got a lot to be optimistic about.
I look at Huddersfield and I see a team who are operating within their means. They're doing it the right way. They're operating within their means. They've got a good, what I think is actually a good progressive coach. We use this term a lot, progressive coach. It's Wagner, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's got good connections. Sorry?
The new Marco.
Yeah, the new Marco. Yeah, no, he's got good connections. He's well known around European football. I'm sure that he's been very precise in the players that he's chosen. I would say that, like you just said, I think Huddersfield fans have actually got something to be optimistic about. You would put them in a group of 5 or 6 that would be relegation contenders, but I think there are definitely 3 teams worse than Huddersfield. So as a Huddersfield fan, if you're out there, I think things are looking okay.
Yeah. You see, the thing right now, we can talk about teams that might get relegated or they'll end up mid-table, but you just don't know what's around the corner. I mean, we spoke about the sack race earlier on before the show with Matt, and someone like this manager or even Jokanovic, they're so very well respected and highly rated. You just don't know halfway through the season, their head might be turned, and then they go elsewhere.
This is it. With Wagner, you could see maybe a German club like a Schalke or Leverkusen.
Absolutely.
His head probably
not just a German club. I mean, I think he's definitely on the radar of a lot of Premier League clubs, I'd say, in terms of not just
Everton.
Yeah, well, I don't know what the price is for him to be the next Everton manager, but I dare say it's quite short. But I mean, we were saying about Pellegrini earlier on. I mean, he's not going to be there for more than a couple of years, you wouldn't think, and you never know. You're going to look at someone like him to be the new, the sort of young guy on the block, aren't you? So he's got a lot to a lot to try and prove. Not that he has to, because I think he's won a lot of fans over. But I don't think any of us would say no. I don't want him at my club. I know me and you, Stel, probably would say, yeah, I'd like to have him at our club.
Well, he's best mates with Jurgen Klopp, so I don't want him anywhere near.
He was best man at his wedding.
That makes it even worse.
Isn't Klopp?
I don't know. But look, the mistake you made there, Matt, was not calling Pellegrini the Harrods Harry. That's I'm not having that. Right.
Dildo brothers either.
Yeah. Right, Eman. I mentioned Spurs earlier. Let's talk about them, and let's also throw in Chelsea as well, because two clubs with contrasting fortunes last season. Chelsea had a pretty garbage season, but ended up winning the FA Cup. Spurs were just meh. Spurs' transfer window has been meh, whereas Chelsea, Chelsea have got a new manager, they've got a new goalkeeper, they've got rid of a goalkeeper that didn't want to play for them. Hazard is still there. They brought in Jorginho. You know, things are looking more optimistic than they were 4 or 5 weeks ago. You know, before it was, you know, Abramovich doesn't have his visa, he's not going to spend any money. Conte is still there, but all of a sudden, in the space of 48 hours, Chelsea are right back in there.
Yeah, I don't buy your optimism, still. Honestly, not for Chelsea. I don't, because I just feel that Chelsea are in this. They're in a bit of a rut. Like, they're overstocked in central midfield. Who is going to be their number 9 for this season? Morata has just looked a mess all pre-season. Changed his shirt number from number 9 to number 29. He's worried about, you know, tributes to his baby and all of that, rather than thinking about backing.
Ryland's going to be number 9. What are you talking about?
Nah. Then you got this situation with Batshuayi. The funny thing about Chelsea is that I think they're caught between it's just a bit of a mess at the club right now, and I really think they're missing a director of football. Obviously, they've spent a lot of money on Jorginho, but he seems to be just simply a sideways passer. And then obviously they've let Courtois go for 35 million, and they've spent 71 million on Kebar Arias, whatever is his last name.
Come on,
yeah. I can't deal with these Basque surnames. So, like, I mean, he again is like, I think that was his first or second full season at Bilbao, and obviously whenever you're buying from Atletico Bilbao, you have to be aware of the premium on their players, because they can't replace players, because only Basque players play for their club. So you're going to spend a lot of money on talent that is pretty suspect.
Like Herrera.
Fernando Llorente hasn't done much since he left there. So yeah, again, I mean, obviously Laporte's gone to City. He hasn't set the world alight. You know, so for me, Chelsea, I just don't really. But I think again, their defense, it looks really, really good, really strong. But again, the one thing that they do have is, even though they've got Sarri as their manager, he's a very tactically aware in terms of his coaching style, and he's all about passing triangles and working through the middle of the pitch. So you're actually looking at the recruitment of the manager to kind of really bridge the gap between them and the rest of the top 6. So I think with Chelsea, I'm just really not optimistic for their season at all. I mean, they're going to be in the Europa League. Will they really chase that hard? I don't think they will. And yeah, I just don't buy the optimism. And then when it comes to Spurs, what can you really say about them? I mean, they just find a new way of disgracing themselves every season. I mean, it's just like it's just ridiculous. I mean, I'm in a group chat with two other Spurs fans who have been season ticket holders for close to 20 years. They didn't renew this season, and before the summer, I was like, oh, you guys definitely have to sign up because you're going into a new stadium. No, like, I've had enough of Daniel Levy. Like, he's just so, like, disrespectful. If you look at the way he's running the club, it's great, but he's actually being paid more than, I think only Harry Kane and Hugo Lloris are getting paid more than him at Spurs, and he doesn't even set foot on the pitch. So they've hiked up their season ticket prices, and they've bought absolutely nobody. there's the stat that's flying around the internet at the moment where since the transfer window, since this transfer window that we have currently in place in 2003, Spurs are the only club not to buy a player, and that's been in 2018. So it's just like how can you fleece your fans? There's all this nonsense about whether the stadium's going to be ready, and then you still bought no one. So you're expecting Pochettino to actually be a better manager than what he's been for the past 3 seasons. And I don't understand how he hasn't been pulling his hair out, shouting from the rooftops that Levy should be buying me some bloody players.
Bang about. I'm going to play devil's advocate here, right? This Pochettino bloke is supposed to be the best thing since sliced bread, right? I mean, he promotes youth. He can get the best out of players. He made Dele Alli into this world beater and Harry Kane, and made Eriksen this £140 million rated midfielder. Why can't he do the same? Why can't he bring more youth players through? And since there's got such an amazing academy that Tim Sherwood left them behind.
Yeah, but it's not Pochettino though. Pochettino is not a manager. Pochettino is a coach. Pochettino doesn't have that much of a say. I don't think he has that much of a say in who they sign.
Oh, so he didn't sign Sissoko?
I don't think he did.
Lucas Moura.
Lucas Moura, I think, is the Pochettino signing.
Llorente.
I'm not convinced that he gets as much input as you think in the players that they sign. And listen, I'm not about to start defending Spurs, obviously, for obvious reason. I'm a gooner. I'm not going to defend Spurs at all. But Pochettino is just a coach. He's not a manager. The manager is dead. The day of the manager is gone. It's all about.
It's his job to coach the players, to get the best out of them.
It is, but I actually feel sorry for Pochettino.
Why?
Because I tell you why. Because he had the opportunity to go to Real Madrid. He was Real Madrid's #1 choice as their new manager, and he said no and signed a new contract with Spurs instead. He would not have signed a new contract with Spurs unless some kind of promises and guarantees were made. And obviously, and I agree with Eman's friends, that Daniel Levy is at fault here because the promises that have made have clearly been broken.
Let me tell you something, right? When you're a manager, a coach, like Pochettino, that's won nothing in his career. And this goes the same with Sarri, right? When you've won nothing in your career and a team like Real Madrid comes up, right? You go to them.
Exactly.
So I tell you why he didn't go to them. The same reason why David De Gea didn't go to Real Madrid is because he's a bottler. He's too scared of any criticism from Marca, from the fans, because they're ruthless. Once they get those white flags out, mate, you're done. Your career's finished. Wanderlei Luxemburgo was there, and then what happened? He got sacked. Hasn't stepped foot in Europe since, I don't think.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
He's done a Lord Lucan, mate. I don't even know where he is.
I don't disagree with you in that respect, but I think he signed as well purely because he thought he was going to be backed in the market and that he'll be able to take Spurs
it's an easy ride. It's an easy ride because he's been hiding behind a lot of journalists and Spurs fans that love him.
I think you might be onto something there, Stel.
Hiding, mate. He started off really well. We got him into 2 very good positions, and he's worked wonders with what he's got. But now we're starting to see, right, the excuses are going to start coming out. Mark my words. And I'll tell you what he's going to do now. He's going to blame the new stadium for any rubbish that happens.
Yeah, which is exactly the same thing that happened to us. But at the moment, he has taken them as far as he can. So maybe you're right. Maybe he should have gone to Real Madrid. I think he should have gone to Real Madrid. I think I would have loved him going to Real Madrid because.
But how far could he have taken Spurs? What? He took them to 2nd place. That's the best that they've done since 1990.
He's taken them as far as he can.
So he's taken them as far as anyone can.
Yeah, they need investment now. They need investment. They need to sign a player. When was the last time Spurs signed a big player?
What, as in big money or big name?
A big player. Who was Jürgen
Klinsmann.
Exactly. When was that? 92? 94. They haven't signed a big player since the Premier League began. So it says a lot. They actually need to put their hands in their pockets and spend some money.
Well,
which is what I think they promised Pochettino when he signed the new contract, and they haven't delivered. And for that, you got to blame Daniel Levy.
Well, you can blame Daniel Levy, but I think at the end of the day, Daniel Levy's has worked wonders for Spurs. He's practically got him into a new stadium. The way that he's sold players and conducted business has been fantastic. So I can't.
It's either that or the new stadium has financially crippled them more than the Emirates Stadium did to Arsenal. because the only target that they really went for was Jack Grealish for 25 mil. 25 mil is an average.
Yeah, but they were linked with Zaha. They were linked with, apparently they wanted Anthony Martial.
Yeah, but Jack Grealish was the only one that it looked like they actually went for.
Okay, fair enough.
On
the side, by the way, Sarri, just one thing about Sarri. He's another guy that hasn't won anything ever in his career, but he took the plunge to go to Chelsea. Let's be honest. Sarri has balls. Sarri ball. The funny thing is, I just want to see Tiesto or David Guetta to do like a song for Sarri. Whenever Chelsea score, they play that song over the timeline. So it will save all these YouTube compilations. They'll just put that instead. Speaking of strange, dodgy clubs, Watford, and I know I can hold my mouth because I know someone that's related to the Pozzos, and I know they're not going to have a dead horse's head in my bed when I wake up in the morning. They've got Javi Gracia as their manager. I don't know how long he's going to be there. He's made some random signings from Osterlands and Bologna, Espanyol. They've even brought in Ben Foster, which is a bit of a strange one. Chris, what do you think Watford are going to do this season? Because it just seems to me that they're another club that they kind of recycle footballers, don't they? They bring them in, they sell them on, and they bring more players in. It's just like a conveyor belt, isn't it?
It's
without going anywhere.
No, I agree. It's one of those clubs that they always just seem to be there or thereabouts since they've come back in a standard, potential relegation, and they'll go on a streaky run and it'll be fine. And the fact that they can do it with 16 different managers a season is pretty impressive. I think that eventually the luck will run out. I mean, they got an absolute steal in selling Richarlison for 40 million. It's how well the players they've brought in to replace will perform. I mean, Watford's one of those clubs that, the fans are very fickle whenever we've played them. They're more obsessed about talking about Zaha than their own team. And, I follow a couple of them on Twitter just out of interest. And the conversations is still about Zaha because of, the fact that he turned them inside out in the playoff final and has done it pretty much ever since. I think that if they don't hit the ground running early on, that they could be in serious trouble, and the luck may run out that bringing in another manager that no one's really heard of and expecting him to work miracles. I think they could be in danger of going down if they don't have a good start, because the fans will be on the back of that manager. And I don't see where the goals are going to come from. I think Deeney's kind of, becoming sussed out. Obviously, they had that great run with Odion Igalo a few years ago.
Right, yeah.
Really replaced the goals that have come from that. But me saying that, they're probably going to finish top half now. They're probably going to surprise everyone. The random guy from Bologna is going to bang in 20, and they'll be able to sell him for 30 million to China next season, and they'll be able to continue survive again. So what do I know?
You got a crystal ball there, mate. Don't worry about it.
I don't know. I feel that sounds like I feel like a bet's coming on.
Random bloke from Bologna, 20 goals.
I was going to say, I think that they're a relegation candidate. Who said that?
He's twisted your arm now. Christ. Right, last but not least, the three teams that occupied the top three places. You got Man City, Man United, and Liverpool. I don't really know where to start, really. I'll tell you what. You being an Arsenal fan, I know there's no love lost between you and United. What do you make of the state of the club at the moment and the transfer window and just everything as a whole from an outsider's view? Because you've probably heard me and Matt and Eman go on about it for a while.
Sure. So we actually had a conversation on Facebook about this not long ago about Mourinho not getting the players that he wants. Mm-hmm. I still don't see it. From an outsider looking in, it looks to me like Mourinho has got, apart from this transfer window, he's got the players that he wanted. And this transfer window, he hasn't got them because, unfortunately, and I think a lot of United fans are blind to this, Mourinho has a 3-season lifespan. This is season number 3. He always self-sabotages as well in his 3rd season. He will do something to either annoy the board or annoy the players, and he'll get himself sacked. Why he's doing it this time, I'm not sure, because I don't see where he goes after Man United. He don't get much bigger jobs than Man United. So
I think he wants a Portugal national team job. I think that's what.
Okay, fair enough. But
he can have it if he wants it.
See, as an outsider looking in, I think Mourinho does more harm than good. Personally, I really do think he does more harm than good.
Okay.
I think there are better coaches out there than Mourinho, and I think the United board see that, and they see that it's his third season, and they see that he's already throwing his toys out the pram. The season hasn't even begun. He's got his excuses ready in case they do sack him. He can say the board didn't back me, or they didn't sign the players that I wanted. And if they do win the title with Mourinho, it's a miracle, and he's done worked wonders. And he's the best manager in the world.
He said it in the press conference today that he goes, I came second with this squad, and then you guys are making teams that came third and fourth to look like champions.
Yeah, well, he likes to talk a lot, but
he's right.
The players that you signed, who have you signed this summer? You signed Fred,
Diego Dalot, and Lee Grant.
And Lee Grant. It's not a good transfer window. It's not a good transfer window. Diego Dalot, I've heard him say a lot of positive things about him. I know he's injured at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah.
But Mourinho seems to be quite excited about him.
Yeah. Well, he's excited because he's a fullback.
Yeah,
we need
a natural fullback.
Yeah.
A natural fullback, which you haven't had.
One that can speak English as well. He's 19 and can speak English, whereas Valencia is 29 and can't speak a word. Yeah. No speak English.
Well, it says a lot. I mean, you could see even watching Sky Sports today on deadline day, and you could see the frustration with Mourinho that he didn't get any defenders that he wanted, which even if the board aren't backing him as a manager, they surely should have been able to see that there's a defensive player needed.
Eman, what's your opinion? Because I've seen you retweet a lot of things in the past. You're a bit mischievous when it comes to Jose. Come on.
Nah, I don't know. Like, I do know. The thing is, I'm going to take it. I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit. But basically, what I'm going to say is that I personally don't think that for me, the three key positions that United needed to strengthen this transfer window were right back, left back, and right wing. For me personally, and I think there were too many players there that have been surviving so many bullets through so many managers that just needed to be shipped off. Why is Darmian still there? Why is Phil Jones still there? Why is Smalling there? Why is Rojo there? Like, I know Jose wants a central defender, but if we had, say, for example, we were linked with Maguire, we were linked with Toby Alderweireld, we were linked with Diego Godin, Varane, Boateng. If he gets any one of those players, that means Manchester United have 6 senior centre-backs, all of them probably on at least 80k a week. That is completely unsustainable.
And the rest.
It's such a massive risk. And then if they do sign one of those, players, and then the window closes, all of Europe will then say, okay, let's go and buy some Man United centre-backs, but then they'll probably offer some derisory bids because they know United need to get players off their books. So again, Woodward has been messing around and not doing the things that needed to be sorted out. I don't understand why, if we were linked, we've been linked with Sandro for nearly 10 months. Why didn't that deal happen? Right backs. There were lots of right backs that we could have purchased. That's not done. Right wing, that's not done. I mean, but the thing again, because there's been some breaking news on the Guardian, which basically is stating that Mourinho's Woodward has actually vetoed Mourinho's signings. So effectively, he's saying that he doesn't want to buy those particular players because they are short-term fixes, which is
he's not backing the manager.
He's not backing the manager. So again, it's like I don't know how to view that, because is it right that Mourinho wants short-term fixes?
Sure. I'm going to let you in on this one now, because I don't know if I should say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. Right?
Here we go. Breaking news.
Ed Woodward loves to talk himself up, right? And he spoke to after a press conference, he spoke to a whole bunch of journalists, and he spilt the beans on a lot of things. He took the piss out of Boateng's injury record. He said that he was hoping Everton wouldn't spend the agent fee on Yerry Mina because it would distort the market. The guy that spent £90 million on Paul Pogba. He actually had breakfast with Perez. right? About Varane, and they were talking about £100 million deal. Now, all of this stuff that you're hearing, I found out about 6 hours ago, but I couldn't say anything because I knew that there was a blackout, a media blackout when it came to exactly. So, you know, I couldn't really say too much, but, you know, he was saying that Martial isn't going anywhere and Jose Mourinho is only a short-term thing. So, at the end of the day, it's just pointing to Jose Mourinho walking or leaving on a mutual agreement. That's all it is.
He'll never walk. He'll wait to get sacked.
There you go.
No manager or head coach walks these days. They wait to get sacked so they can get their payday.
There you go.
But I understand Martial that they don't want to sell him because they still see him as one for the future.
Yeah.
Even though Mourinho's fallen out of him, I think Mourinho's comments that he made about Martial were unwarranted and unfair when he didn't turn up to training, when his missus had just given birth and had a complicated labour.
But Phil Jones's missus had the kids and he was on holiday and he still came back early.
Yeah, but
Phil Jones is shit.
Yeah, but I guess every pregnancy is different though. So I don't know, but I mean, I'm not gonna.
Martial FC wins again. Right. Let's move away from United, man, because I could go on about it. It's annoying. It really is. It's just right, to be honest. Really. Do you know? It's
this one.
Yes, it's this one. I still got it. Don't worry. I'm not going to get rid of it. Chris, when you look at Sete, they've only brought in Riyad Mahrez and a couple of others. They brought in Daniel Azani from Melbourne City, which we know they've got a link with the club. They haven't sold anyone.
They loaned him out straight away, didn't they?
They did. That's right. They did. I don't know. I don't know where he's gone to. Actually,
I think it was a Celtic.
Gone to Celtic.
Someone's going to say Celtic. Yeah,
he's gone to Celtic. Do you think they're going to retain the title? I mean, they easily dealt with Chelsea in the Community Shield. It seems to me that they're the favourites.
I mean, yeah, you can't really look past them at the moment. Settled squad. Guardiola's kind of got them playing the way that he wants them to play with the players that he's wanted to get in. I mean, Mahrez will only add to that. But, you know, £60 million on someone that's not going to start week in, week out is, you know, just kind of signifies where the market's at the moment. They're going to be favourites. It's just how long they can assert that dominance, whether they're going to be the team to kind of beat for the next 2 to 3 years, which I don't think they will. But, you know, Pellegrini won the league with them. Mancini won the league with them. The reason they brought Guardiola in is to win the Champions League. You know, that's why he's at Man City, is to win the Champions League. And I think it's going to have to be in the next 2 seasons. And that may shape kind of the thinking, maybe January or next transfer window, that if they don't do well again this year in the Champions League, I can see them going very big to try and, you know, get their hands on that trophy.
Do you see them replacing Guardiola or just spending big in the market again?
I think the owners have been quite good in, you know, supporting a manager. They'd obviously kind of spoken to Guardiola months before he was even appointed, so they were aware of what he wanted and his vision for the club and the players he wanted. They backed him well, and he's delivered the title last season. It's just how patient these kind of, you know, big money owners are going to be, because you've seen it with the likes of Abramovich, that as soon as things go wrong at Chelsea, he's more than happy to chop and change and pay massive wages to get rid of managers. The City owners don't strike me as that, but obviously they've got all the money and they've got all the control. And if Guardiola's not delivering, then they'll bring in the next guy that they think can win the Champions League for them, because they can afford to pay him off.
My question on that would be, though, surely in a way, City, I mean, it's almost like selling to your rivals. If you think about replacing Guardiola, not only you've got to replace him, but he's going to go somewhere else, isn't he? So whether he would have the balls to go to United or Liverpool or whoever, you don't really want to. You'd rather have him with you and not on the side of the opposition, wouldn't you? So
yeah.
But how many ready-made teams are there out there for Guardiola?
Well, I can think of one.
What, Liverpool?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're telling me with that team, the players that United have got there, you know, I know we've been negative about it, but let's not get it wrong. You know, United have got a lot of good players in there available to them. You get the right manager in there with those players and a few tweaks, I would, you could have a good go with that United team. I think it's not so much the players that are the problem at United. I think it's the manager. And it's massively hypothetical, but you take someone like Guardiola and give him the United job for a year or two. I would not be surprised to see him win the league with them.
I'd say next step for Guardiola is probably Juventus.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a shout and a half.
I don't think he'd go from one English club straight to another. I think he'd go.
But when does he go to Juventus? Because
Well,
I would tell you this for now.
Allegri's not going anywhere.
No, it's not about that. It's about the owners. Now, I'm sure I've said this before on the show, but these owners, right? They are ruthless, right?
Talking about Juve's
owners. No. The guys, the Mansur and all those lot, right? They want to leave a legacy. Right, it's not just about coming in with all that oil money and spending and then making themselves look good. What they want to leave a legacy. So it's kind of like the royal family out there. Do you know what I'm saying? They want to leave a legacy for the people. They want people to remember them for years to come. Okay. Right? And that's what they're trying to do with Man City. Forget winning titles. It's not just about that. It's about the infrastructure of the club. It's what they're doing for the community. It's what they're doing for the youngsters, for the schools, for the hospitals, all that kind of stuff. They have got. It's almost as if everything is just like manufactured, but isn't, if that makes sense. So they're doing it. It seems like they're doing it as a PR stunt, but they're not.
So you're saying that they would hang on to him for as long as humanly possible?
I think they'll hang on to him until he can't cope anymore.
Okay.
Because we know how flaky he is. I think he will go. Yeah, he will go on his terms.
Yeah.
When he's ready.
But this is what I mean. This is why I see he will probably end up at a Juventus, because there's going to come a point where Allegri thinks, right, I need to do something new, because at the moment he hasn't really got any competition. Let's be honest. He's going to want to do something new, and he probably will want to come to the Premier League, because there's rumours that he's been learning English for the last couple of years anyway. Yeah. So he's getting ready to come to the Premier League. Yeah. And you could probably see you could probably actually envision a swap.
I don't know. I think if it was going to happen, it will happen years down the line. Because
not now. In 2 to 3 years,
City were caught in Guardiola for about 4 years when they got Begiristan in 2012, 2013. Sorry, so it's not as if it was like a rash decision. No. They were targeted. They targeted him. They knew that after Bayern Munich's contract was up, they're going to get him. Yeah, right. So they basically laid the foundations for Guardiola. If you look at, as I said, their training ground and everything, they catered to what Guardiola wants from his players on the pitch. Yeah. So everything is for him.
Yeah, it's pretty much Guardiola FC.
Precisely. So I don't think they would ever sack him unless they had a really bad run of results, or if they didn't win the Champions League in the next 3 to 4, which they will. And I'm sorry, they will.
I'm not saying that they would sack him. I'm saying that when it comes to a time when he says,
"Oh yeah, that's what I said."
I would see his next step is probably Juventus.
Could be. You never know. But it'd be interesting to see who they would bring in to replace him. But let's talk about one more team, the team that I don't really want to discuss. I'm going to leave it to Matt or Eman or Chris or even you, Liverpool. They did their business early. They've spent quite a bit of money, but to be fair, a lot of people criticize Jurgen Klopp for it. They questioned his morals. I wrote an article about it, and I said, you know what? He hasn't really gone against his morals. He's doing what any manager would do and improve his squad. Yeah. They brought in Fabinho, Naby Keita. Fabinho came out from left field. Shaqiri, the same way, and Alisson Becker. I don't want him to be called Becker because I remember Boris Becker and he was a great tennis player, so don't compare him. Okay, so
3 good signings.
3 out of 4. What do you mean?
3 good signings. Yeah.
Who are the 3?
Fabinho, Keita, and Alisson.
You don't like Shaqiri?
I don't like Shaqiri. No, I don't even like Liverpool.
Oh, E-man, talk to me.
I don't know. I think Liverpool have done really good business this year. Whether they're second in terms of favourites, in terms of challenging for City, I don't know. They've one thing I was always worried about Klopp whenever he goes into the transfer market, he's very particular about the players that he actually wants to buy. So he has option A and he's sticking to that option A. So however long it takes to get that particular player, he will get that player. So obviously he's been able to get Fabinho for 45 million, I think it was. He's got Naby Keita now in the ranks, so he's freshened up the midfield. Obviously they've got the firepower up front. They've sorted out the defense, but I was looking at Liverpool's team and I was thinking, is Liverpool's team better than Manchester United's? I still don't think it is. I still don't think it is. But one thing that they
you mean 1 to 11?
Yeah, 1 to 11. I don't think it's better than Manchester United still. I think if you look at our defense, if you look at our midfield players, apart like Liverpool have a better attack is so clear. I think only probably Lukaku would enter into their front line in place of Firmino. But I think from defence backwards, I think United still have a better team. But then the one thing Klopp has done really well is that he's able to create strength in depth. So Liverpool will have more staying power than they did last season. So that's the thing that's what kind of brings a bit of fear into my heart when I think about Liverpool going into next season. So yeah, they've done really, really well, and they've been able to do it without any fuss as well, which is very surprising considering that there is a lot of premium on transfers nowadays for English clubs.
The thing is, the previous regime were, they dawdled and they did it, and then they spent £35 million on Andy Carroll. Whereas this lot, FSG, they're very serious. You can tell they're serious about it. John Henry doesn't mess about. With the baseball.
But it's interesting because they're not, the way that they run the Red Sox is that they're kind of not anti-spending, but they're very shrewd in the market. So they obviously use a lot of statistical analysis to make their purchase. Moneyball, exactly. So they're very shrewd, but I think that they've realised, and I think it's quite good to kind of see. Liverpool have had quite a lot of stick over this transfer committee sort of stuff, but it seems like Liverpool have got a handle on all different departments feeding into the transfer strategy, which has allowed them to now come across a lot more coordinated. It does help when you have a manager as lucid and as clear in the mind as Klopp, who knows what he wants and is very principled and actually buying this particular type of player. So that's why you're able to see that they are buying very, very good players.
Is that how you think of Klopp, lucid and clear? Because he comes across as a bit chaotic. Well, maybe on the pitch.
I think in terms of his style of play and in terms of his recruitment, I think he is quite lucid, and I think you've seen that with how Liverpool are. They know how they're going to play regardless of the opposition, and with this transfer strategy. In terms of press conferences, in terms of what he says to the media, he can be who the hell he wants. Do you know what I mean? I'm not really going to get on his back, but
So you know better than me on this, but didn't he say something about he'd never signed Wijnaldum, and then a couple of years later he signed him?
I can't remember, mate.
I'm sure he was in the press or something. They really heavily criticising Wijnaldum that he had never signed him, and then all of a sudden he's at Liverpool.
Yeah, but I'm not one to stick up for rival managers. I hate the fact that I'm doing this, but every manager says something and then they always go back on it. Whether it be, Ferguson said I'd never sell Real Madrid a virus, and then when he sold Real Madrid, Ronaldo for 80 million. So what kind of a virus is Ronaldo? I don't think he's a virus; he's a cure. He cured Real Madrid, didn't he? But
I think there's been a few. I think sometimes, you could say this about any team with any manager, but some of their signings have been questionable at times as well. They're like Firmino. For me, I still don't think he's good enough to be the main striker for a team like Liverpool. And then Salah, no one was going to predict Salah being able to perform like that. If he performs again like that this season, then hats off to him.
Well, so they're saying about Harry Kane, he can only do it one season, and then he did it again.
He did it again. Well, let's see what Salah can do. But they didn't buy him knowing that he was going to do that.
No, I mean, for me, the most impressive thing that Jurgen Klopp has done, and I know you might laugh about this, is actually make Oxlade-Chamberlain look at like the player that Arsenal got him to be.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think Chamberlain, before he got injured, was absolutely explosive for Liverpool. And,
because they played him in the right position.
Yeah, but he's obviously said things to him and got him motivated and playing a certain way. I mean, Coutinho being sold didn't do anything for him, did it?
No.
Apart from making him £140 million richer. So, yeah, Liverpool will clearly be in the mix there or thereabouts in the season. Lads, I know that we've been doing this show for, I think, over 2 hours, right? Wow. I'm gonna try and wrap this up as quick as I can. So obviously, we want to get some shut eye predictions for the season. Then, Chris, Eman, Matt, top 4 champions, relegated, top scorer.
wants to
City
get
to win the league.
Get that.
He's gone for City for the title, yeah?
City for the title, top four, City, United, Liverpool, probably Chelsea. Obviously Spurs are not invested, so they drop out. Relegated, I am going to go for Brighton, obviously. This is more of a wish. Cardiff, and maybe someone like Watford or Bournemouth. Top goal scorer, Head said someone like Lukaku or Kane. Heart is wishing Christian Benteke comes back and gives us all those goals he owed us from last year, but we'll see.
Superb. Do you want to guess how many managers are going to get the sack, or who the first one is to go?
First one to go. First one to go. That's a tough one. I'm going to go a bit out of the box and go for someone like Pochettino. I think he's just going to.
Oh,
Wow.
Wow.
That's
He's going to
actually
make a prediction, so I'm going to go for that.
Okay. Eman?
Yeah, I think in terms of the champions, I can't see past City, to be honest. I mean, it'll take an exceptional season for anyone to get past them this season. In terms of top four, I think City, United, Liverpool, and I think Spurs. Well, if Poch stays, I think Spurs still have. I think they're still a better team than Arsenal and Chelsea currently, and they've got goals. So yeah. In terms of relegation, I think Cardiff will go down. I think Huddersfield will go down, and I think Southampton will go down as well.
Nice. Matt?
Well, I think my feelings on this, Stel, after the conversation we had on Sunday night, and whatever Rodri's doing tonight, I hope he's not going to be watching this, because I'm going to tip Liverpool to win the league. Purely because I've done it for the last 30 years, almost tempting fate. So I'm hoping it's going to, have the same effect. But no, I do. One thing you didn't mention there when you talk about Liverpool, I think momentum. I think momentum's got a huge thing when it comes to. I've seen United teams like you win leagues that aren't the best team. Sometimes the best team doesn't always win the league. It's the best club, it's the best side. And I mean, obviously City are obviously favourites, and they've probably got more of a shout. But I think there's something building at Liverpool, and I'm going to stick my neck out and say Liverpool. Hopefully in a year's time you'll come back and take the piss out of me. But in terms of United, the pair side has run out, as has the optimism. So I'm going to say Liverpool to win the league, and then
Liverpool to win the league.
Yeah. City, Chelsea, United, Tottenham to fight out top four in any particular order. I'd say United probably fourth, fifth. Relegation. The fact that I'd forgotten all about Watford until you mentioned them towards the end of the conversation. Because when we were going through, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, who haven't we discussed? And then when you mentioned Watford, I thought, So I'm going to say Watford, Southampton, and Bournemouth to go down.
Wow, Colin's going to keep Cardiff up, eh?
Yeah, well, yeah, why not? And then go top scorer. Yeah, if I'm tipping Liverpool to win the league, then does that mean I'm going to have to tip Salah to be top scorer, or was he a one-hit wonder? I'll go Harry Kane just to keep it interesting. And first managerial casualty. Well, we spoke about this, didn't we, before the show? I've got a vested interest because I work for a website called the Sack Race, and they've got the Leicester manager to be the first manager to leave, and the second favourite is Jose Mourinho. So,
in that order.
Yeah. So I'm going to say Mourinho is going to be the first manager to leave. So I did it in the week, and I'm going to do it again today. Look away now, Rodri Giggs. I'm tipping Liverpool to win the league and Mourinho to get sacked.
Crikey. Come on, John.
Okay, so I'm going to maybe raise a couple of eyebrows here.
Oh, come on.
City to win the league.
Right.
Can't see past them, I'm afraid.
Right.
Liverpool seconds.
Okay.
And then third and fourth between Arsenal, Chelsea and Spurs.
Okay.
Relegated, for me, it's Watford, Southampton, and Cardiff.
Why is everyone picking on Watford? Because of the random Bologna player.
random Bologna player who's going to be scoring 20+ goals in his first season, and he's going to be like what was the Italian that was at Southampton that went to China? What was his name?
Graziano Pelle.
Yeah, he's going to be the next. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, top goal scorer. I really want it to be Aubameyang. I really do, but it'll probably be Harry Kane.
Okay.
And first manager to get sacked, Neil Warnock. Yeah, without doubt.
Vincent Chan turns up to boo him off the pitch.
The man's made a living without getting sacked. Come on.
Superb.
And then it'll be Mourinho.
Jose. Yeah, I think Jose's going to go, isn't he? Top four, my top four: Sete, Liverpool. I think Chelsea will get third and Arsenal fourth. I think Arsenal and Chelsea without it Champions League football. I know Europa League's going to be there, but I think they'll play their kids in that competition. Don't forget, it's a sprint, not a marathon.
Yeah.
I think United will end up sixth
because of Mourinho leaving.
No, I just think it's going to be one of those seasons for us. We're just going to have to accept mediocrity.
Fair enough.
First manager to go, Mark Hughes.
Mark Hughes.
Leslie Hughes.
I put him down joint second.
Leslie's gone. He's gone. He's gone already. P45 him. Bottom three. I said two of them, didn't I? I said it was going to be Bournemouth, Southampton, and Cardiff. They're the three. First manager gone. I said Mark Hughes. I still think Jose's going to go. Top goal scorer. I'm going to go with Aubameyang, actually.
He's a goal machine, isn't he?
Yeah.
You've got to admit, he's a goal machine. Whether you like him or not, whether you like Arsenal or not, the man scores goals. Yeah,
exactly. We've got some Facebook questions, but I think we answered them actually during the show. Craig asked, is this a sign of history repeating itself for Everton with lots of signings made, which Matthew spoke about earlier? He said, why would Chelsea bring in another midfielder on loan with no intention of signing permanently when they have Ruben Loftus-Cheek? We've spoken about that.
Yeah, but in that respect, I actually really rate Kovacic as well.
Yeah,
I think he's a good player. I think regardless whether they were stocked or not, he was a good player.
Although just seems like a bench warmer to me, really.
Fair enough.
Anyway, who has had the best transfer window outside the top six? Didn't we speak about Fulham being the best?
Yeah, I'd say Fulham,
Yeah. Okay, cool. What's worse for Jose, quitting or being sacked? Does he save face by being sacked as he can say he wasn't backed?
He'll never quit. He'll wait to get sacked. He'll never quit.
Okay, fair enough.
Same thing that Conte did last season.
Yeah, plus there's probably about 30 million quid in it for him as well.
Yeah, exactly. Why would you walk away from that?
Okay. Who from the three promoted sides has spent wisely? We've answered that already. So, we're not.
Wolves have done well as well, though.
Yeah.
Wolves have signed well as well.
How long will Mourinho last? Is another one.
Yeah.
We've done these already. This is great.
It seems like a lot of people are all in the same mindset that Mourinho's on his way out.
True. Okay, Lucius asked a good one here. Would another season of such dominance by City damage the reputation of the Premier League?
No. I don't think so. It's happened for years down the line. I mean,
I think United are the only team to do it back-to-back, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or Chelsea did it once.
Well, in Premier League years, but I mean, it's cyclical. It's always going to be that way. I mean, it's probably worse now than it was years ago. I mean, we've always lived through. I mean, Huddersfield won it 3 years in a row in the 1930s, didn't they? So, I mean, you trace it back, you're always going to get periods of domination. It's more emphasised now, and it's probably more concentrated. But I think people are looking a little bit more into it because, United did it. Those of us growing up in the 80s remember Liverpool doing it, and before them it was somebody else, and before then it was someone else. And nobody would have thought it was ever going to be Man City, and who knows who it's going to be in 20 years' time. So I guarantee it won't be Watford, but who knows?
Fair enough. Joe Uccello from the brilliant podcast Low Limit Football. Sorry, I got windy pops here. Low Limit Football. He's asked, with the moves that have been made both at Liverpool and Man City, has Liverpool done enough to overtake the defending champions? Have they done enough?
No, because
unless
other than Salah, they don't have a 30 goal a season player. Firmino's not enough, if you ask me. And Mane needs to score more goals as well. Whereas you look at City and they've got Aguero, who is one of the most consistent strikers in the world.
Guardiola doesn't rate him.
He doesn't rate him, but he still plays him.
Mm.
And then you've got Gabriel Jesus, which, in my opinion, in the next couple of years is going to be in the debate of who's the best player in the world between him, Mbappe, and Neymar.
You put him in your fantasy football team.
I did, because you took Neymar.
And what did he do?
Mbappe. He didn't
what did he do the World Cup? There you go.
Didn't do much.
You jinxed him. I think the only player you haven't jinxed is Neymar. And even now, Neymar's gone down the toilet.
I didn't have that.
No, but 4 years ago, you were raving about Neymar.
I was raving about Neymar. The thing is, Neymar is one of the most talented players that we'll ever get to see in our lifetime. But he is also the most frustrating player to watch in the world.
Yeah, well, the two things he's most famous for now are rolling about and dancing to Aisha Tobago.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
On that question, Stel, before you go on, this is a bit of a supplementary question. If everyone thinks it's going to be as close between City and Liverpool as we're all predicting here, how important do you think it is that 3 games last season out of 4, Liverpool absolutely had City's number, didn't they? Home and away, really. I mean, do you think that comes into it? I mean, because other than that 5-0 game, which people claim wouldn't have happened if Mane hadn't been sent off, but Liverpool looked to completely know how to beat City, home and away. And I just think if it does come down to a title race between the two, there's potentially 6 points at stake there. So
I agree, Matt, but the only thing I have to say is that Liverpool haven't seemed to got at this habit of dropping needless points. I mean, I remember they drew against Watford 3-3. They lost at Swansea, and that was even with Van Dijk in the team. So they seem to be dropping needless points at games. I think West Brom, didn't they blow a 2-goal lead away at West Brom? And, okay, the new signings may prevent that. But at the same time, I still think defensively Liverpool aren't as good as what people make them out to be. I'm still not convinced about the goalkeeper, to be fair. I'm really not convinced about him. Okay, I haven't seen him enough. But this guy was Szczesny's understudy, and we know how crap Szczesny is. So, I don't know.
I agree. And let's not forget he let in, 7 goals against Liverpool?
Yeah.
2 games, so, yeah. No, it's just an interesting point because I was watching the rerun of that game at Anfield last December, when Liverpool pretty much destroyed City. I know it was close in the end, but I just think that seems to have been forgotten about, how Liverpool seem to absolutely be able to beat City at will 3 games out of 4 last season.
We were asking, well, is the best way to beat Man City is to actually attack them? Because so many teams drop off and let them play.
Yeah, well, United proved that in the second half of that game. Last March, was it, when City could have won the league? Yeah. 2-0 down. As soon as you seem to stand up to them and say, let's have it, they seem to buckle. That's my only question about the City next season. They seem to, if you stand up to them and attack them, they seem to not really be able to respond. Maybe they'll learn their lesson from what happened last season, I suppose.
There you go. Well, gents, it's been an absolutely remarkable show. Thank you ever so much for your time. I know it's been a really long night. Chris, thank you for coming on. Really wish you guys luck for the season. Tell us more about your fanzine and your podcast.
Thanks for having me on, guys. 5-year plan is run by, it was originally set up by a group of friends, A-level students, about 10 or so years ago, and it's just developed over the time. All share a common passion for Palace, all good friends outside of the podcast as well. So it's great to be on, weekly podcasts, do podcasts after every home and away game with, try and get special guests on as well. And hoping to kind of grow it throughout the season as the club grows itself.
Fantastic. I wish you guys luck for the rest of the season, mate. It's going to be a big one for everyone, I believe.
Thank you.
Eman.
It's one up front, 4231 podcast. We try to follow all things football. We try to look behind the football, so we try to look at long form journalism, books, films, all stuff around football really. We're trying to really build that. We started that last year, so we've only been going a year. So we're hoping to grow that over the next year or so. So watch this space. We're going to be tackling, hopefully looking at gambling on our next episode with quite a few of the EFL teams with their gambling sponsorship. So we want to kind of tackle that subject. So.
Yeah, and perhaps one day you might be talking about the history of the dildo in the English. we got the dildo brothers at West Ham. We got the guy at Everton's training ground on deadline day a few years ago. You never know the importance of that object. Thank you, Matt. You do a lot of writing. You won't be writing about dildos though, but yeah, you do some great stuff. Would you like to tell listeners more about it?
Yeah, I do a lot of stuff for Sportsman, Tifo Football, the sack race we've spoken about earlier on. I tend to, I suppose, have a bit of a historical view, a look back on a lot of things. I did a piece today for the Sportsman on 5 teams that have been promoted and then won the first division, or top flight division in their first season in the top flight, which I suppose could be a bit appropriate. You know, what we discussed today, maybe Fulham could win the league this season, or maybe Wolves, but I doubt it somehow. But I think what it shows when you do a lot of these retro pieces is that as much as people like to think things have changed, there's a hell of a lot that stays the same in football. And like I said before, everyone seems to think this has never happened before, but there's always been a dynasty in football, whether it's been Preston or Huddersfield or Liverpool or Leeds or United, and I think that will always be the case one way or the other. So that's the way I try and look at things. I can look at things historically, but you'll always tend to find there's a parallel with football these days, even if it doesn't seem to be the case. So that's what I try and do anyway. Well,
you're doing a fantastic job there, mate. So long may it continue. And you, thank you for coming on. It's been a while.
Thank you. It has been a while. It's been a pleasure as well. I've missed this.
Yeah, we haven't argued much, which is good.
We haven't, no. But then we're kind of thinking.
I think it's because we've got 3 guests. That's why.
It is because we've got 3 guests as well. Because Andy's not here anymore either.
Yeah, true, crikey. I don't. You know, poor lad. He's such a good lad. I can't.
Some of the things we said about Liverpool tonight, he's probably gone red by now.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is that for those of you listening and those of you watching that don't quite understand this joke, a friend of ours, Andy, really nice guy. He came on the show every now and again back in the day, and he's once famous for comparing. Was it? It was the.
He called
no. It wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was when we were talking about the "I Had a Dream" speech.
Oh yeah, he thought that Martin Luther King.
First he said it was Nelson Mandela, and then he said no, and then he goes, "Oh, it's Malcolm X." It was one of the greatest moments.
Yeah, comedy moment.
And the thing is, it was live as well.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
And there were people in the chat room just going, "Are you serious?"
I'm sure you must have that soundbite somewhere.
I've got it. I've still got it. It's brilliant. I'm gonna try and find it, put it into this one actually.
Yeah. But no, this has been great. Even the guys I've never spoken to before, but fantastic. And thanks for having me back. It's been good fun.
Yeah, we'll do it again sometime.
Cool.
Sorry, Mr. Malcolm X. Sorry.
You have to find that soundbite.
Christ. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We're on Twitter at Shoot the Defense, or our Facebook group page. Please feel free to join it. It is quite fun. You do get a lot of banter on it, and yeah, it's been emotional. Long live this season. Until next time, take care.
And join the Fantasy Football League.
Oh yes, I don't even know the pin, but it doesn't matter.
Okay, you'll find it on